Ignore the band playing in the background right now, but I do want to address just some smaller details when it comes for planning for Alta Via 1 and 2 in the Dolomites. I just kind of want to go down the list of things I wish I would have known when planning for Alta Via 1 and 2 and things that I think you should consider if you plan on doing it sometime in the future. Going into this backpacking trip, I knew Alta Via 1 and 2 were very difficult trails. I knew the elevation gain was a lot, I know the decline was a lot, but what I did not fully understand was the terrain. I noticed on a lot of people's itinerary that it was very low mileage, but because we've done a lot of backpacking, I've ran an ultra, I normally stick to like the 14 to 19 mile range when I do backpacking. But the problem with the 14 to 19 mileage range is that it takes so long to go that amount of miles because you're hiking on something called scree, which is like loose rock. So when you take one step, you're kind of like sliding back as you take one step forward. So every mile feels like you're hiking like 3 normal miles. So yes, elevation gain's hard, but it just takes so much longer because of the terrain. Normally, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, you know what, 9-hour day, 10-hour day, who cares? But the problem with that is that thunderstorms roll in at least 1 o'clock every day, if not sooner. And the next problem with that is it's hard to leave really early in the morning because you're reliant on the refugios for breakfasts and lunches. Kind of in this pickle where it's like, do I want to eat well today or do I want to start the trail early and avoid thunderstorms? If we're to go back and plan this all over again, we would plan for lower mileage days, even lower than we think, just because we have to take into account the food situation, you have to take into account the thunderstorm situation, you have to take into account the scree situation, the terrain. So there's like a lot more elements than just hiking like, I don't know, in the PNW where it's like very like smooth dirt, or even in the Sierras. Like it was way worse than hiking in the Sierras, and the Sierras has a lot of loose rock. Europeans don't know how to do switchbacks. It's literally straight up. Our average grade on most of the climbs was 25%. If you don't know, it's like, that's like 25%. To do it again, I would never plan a day over 12 miles. Like 12 would be the cap, never over. It's just the amount of time it takes and also trying to get off the mountain before lightning is striking over your head. I don't think I was fully prepared for the weather. And I think it's because maybe the Dolomites had like a little bit of a heat front before we came. So when I was looking at the weather, I was like, oh my God, it's so hot in the Dolomites. But then when I got there, it was in the 30s, 40s, maybe 50s. So it was a lot colder than I was expecting, which wasn't a huge problem because there's sporting goods stores. I bought an extra layer. It was fine, but it was just much colder than I expected. I did pack a rain jacket. I had to buy a new one because it wasn't waterproof enough, but definitely rain gear. I would have brought rain pants. If I were to go back, I definitely would have packed the rain pants, which is so funny because I feel like I packed rain pants on every backpacking trip and I never needed them. So this time I was like, I'm not packing the rain pants. And this is like the one trip I needed the rain pants. You really have to be on top of it with the weather while you're hiking this trail because you don't want to be caught at a 10,000 foot pass when the storm comes in because it can just be really dangerous. And one of the days we got caught in a storm, we were at a higher elevation. We experienced flooding. It got extremely cold, extremely windy, and it just wasn't the safest conditions. You really have to watch out for the weather and like the timing of when you're on top of a mountain. I'm just someone that when I commit to doing a trail, I want to do every single mile in the trail. And I kind of had to like revamp my expectations halfway in just because we had to take some buses and we had to get off trail at some points. So I would say that if you're planning on going to the Dolomites, which is a very rugged and just a very intense mountain range, that you need to prepare that there's going to be some days you're going to have to go off trail. 99% of the people we met had also had to get off the trail at one point or another. Maybe we just had bad luck with weather, with the timing that we were there, but it was a very common thing to have to get off trail, bus somewhere, or just kind of like cut off bits and pieces. It was very unusual for me, so I was like, what is happening? But it was like a very normal experience in the Dolomites to have to do that. If you're planning your trip, know where the bus stops are. Know that you're probably going to have to take a bus at one point or another. Us personally, we had some issues with mapping. I know that a lot of people said that they were surprised by that. We just had some issues. We found ourselves going off trail a few times and our mapping situation was just not very consistent. Though there's a company, I'll tag them in here, that does like specific mapping for you. So if you give them like your refugios that you're staying at, they'll like make you a custom map. And I didn't even know this was a thing until I got there. And so I wish I would have done that. I'll put their tag below, but I think this would be super helpful and I would have done that if I known about that sooner. So incredibly glad we did not camp. Camping is not the move on these trails because it's just so intense, so rugged, such at a high elevation. Weather is crazy, just not the trail to camp on. And everyone we did see camping looked absolutely and totally miserable. And actually, those were some of the people that had to like get off trail completely. If you're gonna do Alta Via 1 and 2, it's either refugios or nothing. I would not recommend camping it. We actually camped Tour du Mont Blanc in 2023 and we had very little problems. We had one really bad storm, but nothing too bad, but this was just like too much to camp in. Stay in the refugios, your food situation's taken care of, and also it's such a fun cultural experience. Both trails have Via Ferratas. Alta Via 1's Via Ferratas are more chill, they're like class 1, so they're not really anything you need equipment for. But Alta Via 2 has a little bit more of intense Via Ferratas. You technically don't need gear for the Via Ferratas on Alta Via 1 or 2 unless you're taking the specific variants on Alta Via 2. But I personally did go buy some Via Ferrata equipment before going on Alta Via 2 because I was worried if we accidentally took a variant and we couldn't go backwards, if there was a storm and we needed to clip in. I just did it for myself to feel safe. But technically you don't need Via Ferrata equipment for either one of them. But let me reiterate, we did not do all of Alta Via 2. We did only a couple sections of Alta Via 2 and we did the majority of Alta Via 1. One of my favorite decisions we made was to stay at the Hotel Lagos de Breas at the start of Alta Via 1 at that lake. And it was pretty expensive to stay there, but it was 100% worth it. One of the best stays, such a beautiful hotel, and it was just a great way to start off Alta Via 1. So I posted my Tour du Mont Blanc itinerary and you guys really liked that, but I don't know if I want to post my Alta Via 1 and 2 itinerary just because it was so sporadic. And we didn't actually follow the itinerary like to a T, so it's hard for me to like post one. But I definitely want to give like bits and pieces of tips and advice because a lot of it is just not online. These are very random and sporadic tips, but please keep these in mind if you're going to plan to do Alta Via 1 and 2. Hope this helps.